The envelope was thin and yellowed, its edges soft as cloth from too many years of waiting. It lay at the bottom of a wooden chest in a quiet farmhouse in Ohio, untouched since the winter of 1865. Dust rose when the lid was lifted, and with it came the smell of old paper, dry cedar, and time itself. Margaret Whitlow stood alone in the afternoon light, her hands trembling as she reached for it. She was 72 now, her hair silver, her back bent from years of work and worry. Outside, the field stretched wide and calm, the same field she had watched as a young woman, waiting for a man who never came home. She knew the letter before she opened it. She had known it for a lifetime. The ink had faded to a pale brown, like a memory trying not to disappear. Some words were faint, others barely holding on. But the handwriting, she would have known it anywhere. Careful, steady, written by a man who chose each word like it mattered. As her eyes traced the lines, the room seemed to fall away. She was young again. It was 1863, and the war had taken most of the men from their town. The trains passed through less often then, carrying news that was never good. Margaret worked at the general store by day and stitched by lamplight at night, sewing shirts for soldiers she would never meet. Thomas Whitlow had promised her he would return by spring. He had kissed her goodbye by the old sycamore near the station, pressing a folded paper into her palm. "If I don't make it back before this is worn thin," he'd said softly, "read it. It'll tell you everything I couldn't say out loud." She never opened it. Spring came, then summer, then winter again. Letters arrived from others, official ones, stamped and brief. One told her Thomas was missing, another said presumed lost. No body, no grave, just silence. Margaret waited anyway. Years passed like slow footsteps on a wooden floor. She married no one. She turned down offers that came gently at first, then stopped altogether. Folks said she was loyal, others said she was foolish. Margaret said nothing. She simply kept the chest beneath her bed and the letter inside it. Now, with the sun slanting low and the world quieter than it used to be, she read. "My dearest Margaret," it began, the ink thin but true. "If this reaches your eyes without me beside you, then fate has chosen a harder road for us." Her breath caught. Thomas wrote of muddy camps and cold nights, of men who sang to keep from breaking, of fear that sat heavy but never quite crushed him. He wrote of the farm, of the smell of fresh bread from her kitchen, of the way her laugh used to surprise him like birds lifting from a fence. "I am not brave in the way stories tell it," he wrote, "but I am certain of one thing. Loving you has been the truest thing I have ever done." A tear slipped down her cheek, leaving a dark spot on the paper. She wiped her eyes and kept reading. "If I do not return," the letter said, "do not chain your life to my absence. Live fully, love deeply. Carry me with you only as a warm memory, not a wound." Margaret let out a quiet sob. That was the part she had never been ready to read. The final lines were faint, the ink nearly gone. She leaned closer, as if nearness could bring it back. "Wherever I rest, know this," it read. "I went believing I was already blessed beyond measure." The room was silent when she finished. The clock on the wall ticked on, patient and steady. Margaret folded the letter carefully and held it to her chest. For the first time in decades, the weight she carried felt lighter, not gone, but understood. That evening, she walked to the edge of the field where the sycamore still stood, its branches wide and scarred by storms. She buried the letter there, not to forget it, but to let it finally rest. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the wind moved through the leaves like a soft goodbye. Margaret smiled through her tears, knowing at last that some love does not fade with ink or years. It lives on, quiet, enduring, and strong enough to last a lifetime.